A very good morning to everybody, and a special thanks to Financial Express for inviting me over to this conclave on inclusive finance. At the outset, let me begin by saying, to unlock the full potential of the MSMEs, not only in terms of production, in terms of getting with the employment numbers, in terms of sustainability, in terms of the development process, in terms of the targets which the government has set out for itself. It goes without saying that the MSMEs play a very critical role. And what we presently need to do is to make that system much more robust, much more resilient, much more smarter, much more efficient. And inclusive finance is going to be a key driver of this engine. The government clearly identifies itself in its role as an enabler, as a provider, as a facilitator, and a protector. We have been constantly in the process of enabling new policy, new framework, developing new systems. As a provider, we've come up with several schemes. There are different programs, not just in the Government of India and the state governments. New technologies, creating new infrastructure, getting into the domain of sustainability, improving competitiveness, and providing a level playing field. As a facilitator, the government is very keen that we get the MSME ecosystem what it needs in terms of handholding, in terms of providing capacity building, and promoting innovation. And as a protector, the government is attempting and bringing in various regulations in various facets of the MSME ecosystem, such as dispute resolution, providing ease of doing business, exit mechanisms, creating fair competition, and crisis intervention, to name a few. The topic for today, inclusive finance, breaking barriers, building futures, is very pertinent, and I thank the organizers and the Financial Express for setting this up. So let's see what's already happened. There is an Udyam certification registration system which the government came up with. We had an earlier system which was known as the Udyam Aadhaar Memorandum. But now in 2020, the government not only expanded the scope of the definition of MSME, that is the system which classifies the micro, small and medium enterprises, but came up with a new formulation on the definition. Now, it is a definition which is simple, it is digital, it is free, and does not require any documents except the Aadhaar. Then look at various e-marketplaces which have been created. That is on the lending side. There is a PSB 59. There is Threads. There is going to be a discussion today on Threads. There is government e-marketplace, and there are various embedded finance projects which are ongoing. Payments. There is of course the madam just mentioned about the UPI. There are more, protocols in the works. The RBI has come up with what is known as the Unified Lending Interface. There is already an OCEN which is running. And how do we need to synergize and build further on that? And of course, there are a host of schemes. All of you know that. There is the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. There is Stand Up India, Startup India. The Ministry of MSME itself has a scheme which is known as GIFT, that is the Green Investment for Financial Transformation. There is a SPICE scheme, that is Scheme for Promotion of Investment in Circular Economy. There is the SRI Fund, Self-Reliant India Fund. There is a fund for startups, which is again being redeveloped. It was a 10,000 crore fund, which is now in the works. There is also Swanidhi, there is NULM, then there's NRLM, there is PMEGP, PM Vishwakarma, CGTME. I'm sure you know all of them. But this is what has already happened. Of course, we need to build upon what's already happened. And there are new things which we need to do. So what's the work ahead of us? Let's look at the formalization gap. There was a survey which was done earlier in 2015-16, which said that the total number of MSMEs is 6.3 crores. If you look at the Udyam data today, we've crossed about 6 crores. But there is still much more to gain. The formal gap, which was of 2015 vintage, has probably doubled, and therefore the gap, of course, has increased. So that's something which we need to bear in mind as we move forward. How do we reduce the gap? Then there is a credit gap. The credit gap numbers, all of you know, there is a UK Sinha committee report, and there was a World Bank IFC report which came up with numbers like 25, 26 lakh crores. Again, that also has moved. If you've been following newspapers, there are some reports will tell you that it's gone to 90 lakh crores. There's another one which says it's probably 100 lakh crores. There are all kinds of reports. But the point is the credit gap is certainly a thing, and it is big. And how do we address this? Also, some other number crunching. I just want to put forth to this August House. There are 261 lakh MSME loan accounts. 90% of those are in the micro. But juxtapose that with the credit outstanding. 92% of micro accounts, but the loan outstanding to micro is only 50% from the formal system. That's another gap. Look at the working capital. The loans from the scheduled commercial banks. Today the number is 52%. If you look at some other reports, they'll tell you that the requirement probably is 75%. But here we are at 52%. Another thing which comes out from the data: 16% of the loans from the SAP, from the scheduled commercial banks, is in the form of LAP. Why is that happening? The RRBs, the regional rural banks, only 12% of their loaning is done to MSME. Look at loan rejection. At the branch level, it is 10% and 8% for PSBs and private banks. At the CPCA level, it is 8% and 27% respectively. There's another gap. Delayed payments. There's a report which came some time back. It said that there is 10 lakh crore which is locked into this. It again, if in the current perspective, that probably has doubled, or maybe something like that. But certainly, the delayed payments is a huge problem in the MSME ecosystem. So these are some of the numbers which I wanted to share with you, and this is going to lay down the perspective for future policy, future interventions. Also, we need to look at all this with what's happening in the present business landscape. We are in a regime where the delinquencies are going down. The domestic demand is going up. Everybody understands and knows that digitalization and digitization is moving very, very fast. Online payments is a definitive thing which is not going to go back. No, it's not going anywhere. It's going to move forward only. There is in the business, there are increasing third-party dependencies. There is amazing amount of change in custom and consumer behavior. Sustainability is another element which has come into play. Compliance burden is increasing. While the government is attempting to reduce the compliance burden, you may have read, you may have noticed, you may have witnessed, so many acts have been decriminalized. So many amendments have, brought in simplification. The IT Act is the latest in its series. The compliance burden has been reduced in terms of procedures and rules. But at the same time, new compliance burden is also adding up. We have, among the latest, the EPR regime, the extended producer responsibilities, which is going to be a huge burden on the MSME. How do we navigate this? There is the ESG regime. There is other things, externally happening. There is a CBAM which is in the play. And look at the international headwinds. What's happening over there? MSMEs contribute, 40 to 45% of the exports. We are moving into an international situation where protectionism is the flavor of the season. There are other added problems, which are compounding all this. There is the Suez Canal, and the Panama Canal, crisis which we've seen. There is a shortage of containers. There is a talk of de-dollarization and further threats associated with it. These are all things which are happening in the business landscape, and we all need to understand and appreciate that. And blending this with what I said about the numbers, what are the possible solutions? So in my view, innovation and technology is the key. And if you look at the MSME ecosystem, what it needs in terms of credit, it needs cheaper credit, it needs faster credit, and needs timely credit. That really is the mantra over here. So how do we do this? How do we improve upon what we already have, and what new things we can do to make it better? So I feel one of the strong things we need to do is look at the credit process itself. What is happening in the credit process? How can we make it smarter? How can we make it seamless? How can we make the credit process come up with zero defects and rejections? How can the system of KYC become better? There is a e-KYC regime in place. There is a centralized KYC which the government has come up with, and the RBI. There are issues in terms of risk assessment. Traditionally, the banks and the formal system have utilized either the collateral model or the cash flow model. If you've been following the budget announcement, in the last budget announcement, the government came up with a new formulation of risk assessment, wherein a model is being developed to use both financial and non-financial data and digital footprint to create a risk assessment model. And it is going to use various systems which have been created, like the account aggregator system, using the utility information, capturing geotagging, various elements, and how do we develop a model which takes you into a better process of credit, which will, like I said, which will reduce the cost of credit, which will increase the speed of credit, and will provide adequate credit to the MSME. Another element, I think, which is going to change the game, it has the potential, it has the wherewithal, if done properly. It is how do we leverage artificial intelligence? How can we leverage artificial intelligence into risk assessment? We can use AI for fraud detection. We can use AI for dispute resolution. We can use AI for creating bespoke and customized solutions for the MSME, a very important factor. And we can use AI for underwriting, and there may be many more. So AI is certainly something which is there on the table. It is for us to take. Another thing I wanted to flag is, while there is a digital solution, but you look at what's happening at the field level, at the brick and mortar solutions. What are those branches doing out there in the field? There is a problem. We have to acknowledge that there is a problem of shortage of staff. There is a problem of fear among the bankers. The risk appetite is a situation. How do we deal with that? So, of course, behavioral change is not going to happen overnight. But again, here technology and innovation is going to play the role. How the bankers, how the formal lending system can best leverage the existing and new and emerging technologies to get around this situation. Third is, in the MSME ecosystem, there is what is known as the NTC, new to credit. Now, the present risk assessment models have been designed in such a manner which are inherently against the NTC. They rely on payment behavior. They rely on repayment. There is a CIBIL score, there is a experience score, and there are things like that. But if you are going to rely on that, the NTC probably is not going to get anything. So how do we use technology to help the NTC? And like I said, the government, the model which the government is coming out with, that should certainly go a long way. Another is looking at CLM, the co-lending model. The co-lending model was propounded to bring in greater outreach, and where the NBFCs do the due diligence and the banks provide the risk cover. While some of it has happened, but we need to have greater traction on that. And I understand one of the big problems today on that is integration and interoperability. But if you want to get there, there are various platforms which have been created. If you look at the API Setu, and ULI is now doing already is getting into that. And there is also the open framework. How the CLM can be propagated and proliferated is something which we need to address. Then I also want to talk about a little about trades. The trade system today, the numbers are more than cumulatively more than 4 lakh crores, but it has the potential for so much more. Like I said, in the beginning, 10 lakh crores is the number which is locked in, but that is a dated number. Today the number has increased, and trade certainly creates that window to solve this problem. But at the same time, there is scope to, while there are 5 players in trades, a lot of changes have happened. We have made trades as a payment continuum. We have got insurance into the trades system, and we are reaching out to the RBI to increase the universe of the the lending people on trades. We are working with Department of Public Enterprises and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to get maximum buyers. But 2 things I want to flag over here. One is to look at reverse factoring. I think there is some kind of a regulatory clearance which we need to find, because in the trade regime, everybody is a winner. The MSME is the seller is a winner, the banker is a winner, okay, the insurance guy is the winner. But what about the buyer? What is in it for him? How do we incentivize the buyer? So one problem over there is that in reverse factoring, sometimes the whole thing is looked at as a loan, sometimes it is looked at as a payment. What is that? Let's bring clarity in that. That will certainly help incentivizing. There's another way to incentivize. How do we create another, which the Ministry of MSME is working is to create something which is known as the prompt payment regime, or a trust mark regime, or whatever you like to call it. And how do we help the buyers get some incentive to participate on the trades platform? Another thing on the trades is, while there is a trades for the factoring business, there is a huge black area for the traders. The top of the trader chain is driving that thing. I think there is a strong need to create another product where there is a specialized trades for traders itself. So I think if this is a workshop, I'm sure that is something which the panelists and the participants may like to take up for further discussion. And lastly, I think another great facility which has been created is the SLBC platform, which the government monitors regularly on a quarterly basis, with getting all the bankers, lenders, and the various borrowers, government, all stakeholders, RBI into that, and in which there is what is known as drawing up the ACP, that is the annual credit plan for every district. I feel very strongly that if you get the ACP right, the credit delivery will be great. The problems of credit gap will vanish. So I would urge the bankers and the MSME in the industry to help the government develop the right ACP on the ground. So with that, I would like to just close by saying, while fintech is fantastic and we can definitely leverage artificial intelligence to move forward, but we also need to look at the certain issues and challenges which are happening in the fintech space. So we have seen that the fintechs have shown they are very, very high on technology, but very not so great on the regulatory forbearance. How can we bring this together? Also, we have seen that the auto loan processes of the the fintechs, they follow a rule-based AI system, which is just blindly trying to increase the portfolio. And with that come several other related issues. Also, in the fintechs, what's happening is that the cost of credit is apparently becoming the price for the speed of credit. That's another caution or red flag which we need to understand. And look at the borrower side. Who are a lot of look at the unsecured borrowers, unsecured loans is the biggest portfolio over there. There are also people who are going over there have been either rejected by the formal system or people who want very quick loans. All this is creating another situation. Then it is followed up with a very harsh recovery regime. So these are some of them. And then also the skill set to manage the fintechs. While the technology, like I said, is great, but we need professional bankers and people who understand the banking to get there. So I've just flagged these things, which I'm sure the participants and panelists will discuss and debate and find solutions on this. So as we move ahead on the path of Viksit Bharat, it is important to find the optimal mix. This optimal mix is very, very critical for getting into the next level of reforms. And I'm sure this conference will be able to find that mix by discussing, debating, questioning, and answering. And I will be very, very happy if the organizers are able to share with the government, the Ministry of MSME, the outcome report, and how we can leverage that and move forward. Thank you very much.